$68 billion. That's how much the United States has poured into the Patriot missile defense system over the last 4 decades. 4 generations of upgrades deployed across the globe, marketed to every American ally as the gold standard of air defense. And Iran just threw something at it that it was never designed to stop. What's up? I'm Daniel. This is Arsenal Economics, and what's unfolding right now in the Middle East isn't just another round of missiles and counterstrikes. It's a live fire exam of the most expensive shield in military history against a weapon built specifically to beat it. The Fattah hypersonic missile versus the Patriot air defense system. And the early answers coming out of this test should make every defense planner in Washington very uncomfortable. Let me show you why. In June 2023, Iran stood in front of cameras and unveiled something called the Fattah 1. A year later, the Fattah 2 followed, both classified as hypersonic missiles, meaning they exceed Mach 5, 5 times the speed of sound at minimum. But here's the thing most headlines get wrong. Speed is not what makes this weapon a problem. Traditional ballistic missiles are fast too. An intercontinental ballistic missile can hit Mach 20 on re-entry, so why isn't the Patriot losing sleep over those trajectories? A ballistic missile goes up, follows a big, predictable arc through space, and comes back down. Predictable, that word is everything, because if a computer can predict where something will be in 8 seconds, it can put an interceptor at that exact spot and kill it. Hypersonic glide vehicles break that equation. They detach from their booster, drop into the upper atmosphere, and glide at extreme speed while maneuvering laterally, shifting course, adjusting in real time. The clean parabolic arc that interceptor math depends on simply doesn't exist anymore. Iran claims the Fattah 2 reaches Mach 13 to 15. Now, let me be upfront with you because I think credibility matters more than hype. Those are Iran's own stated figures. Full independent verification of exact performance specs does not exist because Iran isn't exactly inviting Lockheed Martin engineers to observe flight tests. But what we do know from the Pentagon's own testimony before Congress, stated under oath multiple times, is this. Hypersonic weapons represent a threat category that currently deployed American defense systems were not designed to counter. That's not commentary from some random analyst. That's the Department of Defense telling Congress on the record, we have a gap. So let's look at what sits on the other side of that gap, the Patriot system. Patriot entered service in 1981, originally built as an anti-aircraft system. Over the decades, it evolved. PAC-3 added ballistic missile engagement. PAC-3 introduced hit-to-kill technology, where the interceptor physically rams the incoming threat at closing speeds that can exceed Mach 10. The latest variant, PAC-3 MSE, can engage short to medium-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and aircraft with genuine precision. Against what it was designed to fight, the system works. That's not in dispute. Here's where the physics get uncomfortable. Patriot calculates an intercept solution by tracking an incoming object, predicting its position a few seconds into the future, and sending the interceptor to that predicted point. For a ballistic missile following a fixed arc, that prediction is reliable, the math is clean, the kill is achievable. For a hypersonic glide vehicle maneuvering at Mach 10 plus and altering its flight path every few seconds, that prediction window collapses. By the time the system calculates where the target will be, the target has already moved somewhere else. And I want to be precise about this because it matters. This is not a flaw in the Patriot system. This is a physics limitation. The system performs exactly as designed. The problem is the threat has evolved past the design envelope. The U.S. military understands this completely, which is why the Missile Defense Agency created the Glide Phase Interceptor Program, a next-generation system built specifically to handle hypersonic threats. But that program is still in development, not deployed, not protecting anyone today. The shield that exists right now and the sword being swung at it were built for 2 different eras of warfare, and the sword showed up first. Let's anchor this in what has actually happened, not speculation, not prediction, events. October 2024, Iran launches Operation True Promise 2, approximately 180 ballistic missiles fired directly at Israel, the largest direct missile attack in Israel's history. Every defense layer activated simultaneously: Arrow 3 for exospheric intercept, Arrow 2 for upper atmosphere, David Sling for medium range, Patriot and Iron Dome for terminal defense, U.S. Navy destroyers in the eastern Mediterranean firing SM-3 interceptors. 4 nations' worth of interceptor technology, some of the most advanced on the planet, operating together in real time. Some missiles were intercepted, confirmed by both sides. Some missiles were not, also confirmed. Open-source intelligence groups analyzed satellite imagery showing impacts at Needham Air Base and several other locations. Israel acknowledged hits, but characterized damage limited. Iran claimed significant destruction. The independent reality, as is almost always the case in active conflict, sits somewhere between both narratives. But the strategic signal was unmistakable. Against the densest, most layered missile defense network in the Middle East, possibly the world, missiles still landed. That is a fact, both governments confirmed, just with different adjectives attached. Fast forward to 2025, and the situation has escalated considerably. Multiple defense publications report that Iran has employed advanced Fattah series variants in subsequent strikes. There are reports circulating about specific Patriot radar systems being targeted and damaged, though I want to flag clearly that independent damage verification in an active conflict zone is extremely difficult. What is publicly confirmed is that the U.S. rushed additional THAAD batteries and military assets into the theater. Here's a question that answers itself. If existing defense systems were performing exactly as needed, why is the Pentagon emergency deploying reinforcements? When the backup arrives before anyone asks for it publicly, the original plan isn't working the way the briefing slide said it would. Now, zoom out. What does this mean for Israel's defense picture overall? Israel built the most layered defense architecture in the Middle East, maybe the most layered anywhere. Iron Dome alone has been called the most successful short-range defense system ever deployed, with reported intercept rates above 90% against rockets from Gaza. But Iron Dome was engineered for short-range QASM rockets, not hypersonic glide vehicles traveling at 10 times the speed of sound. Each Israeli defense layer was purpose-built for a specific threat: Iron Dome for short-range rockets, David Sling for medium-range and cruise missiles, Arrow 2 for high-altitude ballistic threats, Arrow 3 for exospheric intercept of long-range ballistic missiles. Count the layers designed specifically for maneuvering hypersonic weapons. The number is 0. That's not negligence. 5 years ago, the hypersonic threat from Iran was theoretical. Today, it's operational. Technology timelines move faster than procurement cycles. The weapon arrived before the counterweapon was ready. And then there's the number that keeps defense economists awake at night: cost. A single PAC-3 MSE interceptor runs approximately $4 to $5 million per round, according to published defense industry estimates. Iran's ballistic missiles, depending on variant, cost somewhere between $100,000 and $500,000 each. The exact figures get debated, but the ratio is brutally clear. The defender spends 10 to 50 times more per shot than the attacker. In a short engagement, that's manageable. In a prolonged conflict, that math eats you alive. You can have the best interceptor ever engineered, but if your opponent fires 10 missiles for every one you can afford to shoot back, eventually the magazine goes empty, and an empty magazine doesn't care how advanced the technology inside it was. Defense economists call this the cost-exchange ratio problem. Right now, it overwhelmingly favors the offense. So, where does this actually leave things? I want to be honest here because the internet has 2 settings on this topic, and both are wrong. There are people declaring Israel completely finished, defense systems worthless, game over. And there are people insisting everything is fine, nothing got through, total success. Reality is more complicated than either camp wants to admit. It always is. Israel's defense systems are not useless. They have intercepted hundreds of projectiles across multiple engagements and saved thousands of civilian lives. That's real. That matters. Dismissing the entire architecture because it struggles against one new threat category is analytically dishonest, and I'm not going to do that on this channel. But pretending the hypersonic gap doesn't exist is equally dishonest and arguably far more dangerous, because if you convince yourself the shield still works perfectly, you stop building the next one. What we're watching is a genuine shift in the offense-defense balance in the Middle East. For decades, Israel's qualitative military edge, backed by American technology and billions in annual funding, meant defense systems could stay ahead of adversaries' offensive capabilities. That edge has not disappeared, but it has narrowed measurably. And on the specific question of hypersonic defense, the gap today favors the offense. The response is already in motion. Directed energy weapons, laser-based systems like Israel's Iron Beam, are being fast-tracked. The theory is compelling. A laser intercept costs a few dollars per shot, which solves the cost problem, and it engages at the speed of light, which solves the speed problem. But Iron Beam remains limited in range, affected by weather conditions, and not yet deployed at the scale needed to reshape the battlefield. It's a future answer to a present problem.